Like that, born into difference, brown, working class, always below that ceiling of glass, teachers don't expect to thrive to pass.
Just like that, I was born into privilege. White, German, middle class. Mum's a doctor, dad's a lawyer, got 3 siblings, and a cat. Just like that, I found myself on a private school's yard, in the tennis courts and the basketball gyms, learning about life and its rhythms, learning about sharing and giving. Amidst lessons on morality and righteousness, I found myself surrounded by whiteness.
Like that, I found myself in the swimming pool cubicle, the excitement of 8-year-olds, talking to the person in the booth next to you as the usual, chatting away, making a friend. That wall separating did suspend that discrimination, that short sweet elation in the same location with the same creation, for a moment that feeling of being part of the nation. Then, just like that, put your hand underneath, she says. Confusion, bemusement. She sees my hand, she says, oh, I didn't know you were like that. You sounded white. Deflation. Then realization. I don't need your validation, homogenization and segregation based on pigmentation. No more imitation and simulation into this? No.
Just like that, we were fortunate enough to have a pair from Kenya and another one from Namibia. And I saw colour. I felt it, breathed it and smelt it, and I picked up my crayons and did what kids can do so beautifully, what adults deny themselves so painfully. There in my grandmother's kitchen, where memories of the war still lingered, I picked up the crayons with my fingers, used my imagination and let myself dream. Together, I drew 4 people of different colours, standing under rainbow's beam. At the top I wrote, Frieden für alle, peace for all. Back then, I dreamt of justice and imagined peace, despite being so small. She framed a drawing and hung it on her wall. There was a vision, a dream for all.
Like that, in the queue for free school meals, envying the privilege of the lunchbox kids, the dinner ladies refusing to serve me meat because it wasn't halal. I tell them, and parents would tell them I'm allowed to eat it. But to them I was clearly either trying to be deviant and do something I shouldn't be, but I was merely existing. It's a matter of respecting difference, or expect resistance. I found myself constantly in the middle, rejected by white kids for being too different, and rejected by brown kids who disliked that I was Indian, feeling out of control, knowing that these dinner ladies, my teachers, my classmates saw my colour before anything else. Put me into a box. Go on, try it. You dirty Indian, you're just a teepee. What's that? Typical Paki. Thrown into the brutality of high school, Western beauty standards that invoke anxiety, building up the overt and everyday racisms embedded in society. Luckily or unluckily, my multiple sites of oppression mean you can't tie me up into your stigmatised categories. In the words of Audre Lorde, there's no such thing as a single-issue struggle, because we do not live single-issue lives.
Just like that, I went to an international school where privilege was often hailed as general rule. Right there in the history classes, my mind was imprinted by images of the masses, who blindly and enthusiastically followed a fascist man to war, dehumanizing, destroying, dividing, until difference was no more. Together, a violent vision of homogeneity, not unity. Remember and beware. Today, this is seeping back into our community.
A confusing time in high school. Proud to be British, I think. Born in Great Britain. How great is it to be British and drink tea that doesn't grow here? All those beautiful artefacts displayed in the British Museum, which are colonial artefacts. Bringing together all that is British, which we plundered from around the world and labelled as British, our culture. What it means to be middle class, to go and view artefacts, we call it cultural capital. Our culture, the culture of empire, Britishness. Binaries constructed, civilised and uncivilised, Western, East, migrant and expat, always on your terms. What is our identity? Always defining ourselves in opposition of something that would construct as inferior, always boasting about our exterior.
Just like that, I went on a school trip to the Kalahari, where in hindsight critiques of development come in handy. Yet there I was, emotional, hormonal, and 16, but letting myself dream. I think, therefore I am, enlightenment, individualism, and the rational man, were negated and ceased to be the law. I could undo, there in the richness of the desert, as introduced to Ubuntu. I am, because we are.
Like that, 16, and my mind awakened by my world development teacher. All other narratives and comparison were so much weaker. I became a dreamer. Understanding the realities of why we have inequality, learning of our complicity, yet simultaneously seeing the individual and institutional fragility. Our society see these as taboo topics. They make us feel uncomfortable. What we need to understand is that this feeling is incomparable to the suffering and daily lived oppression of what we are voicing here.
Just like that, I graduated high school and went travelling, a journey of privilege with whiteness as my diplomat. Flipping through my yearbook now, I start reading, my quote at the top, just a few lines. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds, by the great Bob Marley. So escape the confines, colour over the lines, celebrate difference with all means, so that one day our children will live the reality of our dreams.
Unaware of the blinkers we're born with and that perceived reality was a myth, soon we would know what it's like for those blinkers to be removed and for life to be improved.
Just like that, my parents paid for my university and I went on to study anthropology. So now Ruth Benedict's quote is where I arrive at. The purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human difference. Yet in my experience there's no deliverance and this reference is met with ignorance. It's not just UKIP but also white lefty liberals. As Malcolm X said, beware of the wolf and the fox. In an ego takeover, they give the struggle a makeover by pretending racism can be resolved at the ballot box.
Like that, into university on a scholarship. White, privileged, middle-class space for which I was not equipped. Studying geography and development, learning to articulate my experience of oppression in an eloquent way, past experiences brought up which society expects to be kept at bay, layers of oppression building up even when trying to obey, the system always leaving those with any markers of difference astray.
Just like that, a year ago I met Neelam and our minds awakened one by one. I am because we are, together as our inspiration. We see co-produced knowledge as transformation.
Just like that, when I met Victoria a year ago, our conversations grew out of these taboo topics, listening to experiences, each conversation more and more freeing. What we have here is something so special, and we want to share with you this little vessel of an amazing opportunity to be free from these categories, commit to conversations across difference together to fight the ignorance.
Together, we follow Angela Davis' call for imagination and live Audre Lorde's dream for difference to be met with celebration. Not knowing how to act can no longer be an excuse. You can only win. In fighting racism, you have nothing to lose.
As we learn in development, there are 4 simple steps for our minds to be freed. Feel empathy, leading to self-transformation, then recognise your complicity, which should lead to action. And by action I don't mean going out and abolishing racism tomorrow. In fact, if that's what you're taking from this, you need to analyse your positionality and ask whether it's your place to be at the forefront of this strive for liberation. You see, I'm not asking you to fight for my liberation. I don't need someone to raise my voice for me. You see, by simply listening to these experiences of difference, you're not just helping free these identities stuck to bodies, you're freeing your mind too, which is bound up in these categories, and you can't excuse yourself from not being influenced by these. We all have prejudices, because society embeds in us associations to features.
So tackle this wall of iniquity, acknowledge your complicity, and root yourself in the continuation of history. Open your eyes and see dead Palestinian children on the streets, unarmed black men, women, and children killed by police brutality, genocide, refugees drowning in the sea, our responsibility, in a world where bodies survive only if they have whiteness as their disguise. So remember, things are never as they seem. Share your knowledge and escape the banality of criticality. Root yourself in history and seize your responsibility. Use your imagination and let yourself dream. And one day, this might become reality.